Thank you. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, can I remind those present that the meeting is being filmed. The minutes, can I ask members' agreements to the minutes, please? Any apologies?
Yes, I have apologies from Councillor Bowring, Councillor Clark, Councillor Halsall, Councillor Norman Jorgensen, Councillor Rowland, Councillor Smith and Councillor Soane.
Thank you. We'll move to a declaration of interest. Do we have any? I'll move on to public question time. Tom.
Sorry, Chair, I was just discussing something before tonight. I have to declare an interest. Apparently my daughter works for a company that does the PR for the Wokingham Town Centre regeneration. It's not pecuniary, but apparently I've got to say it every time we come to a meeting, because every meeting will have it on its agenda in some form or another. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we move on to the public question time. There will be 30 minutes allowed with supplementary questions allowed. And so the first question is from Claire Hickman. Okay, the second one is, so she'll get a written reply. Jill Purchase. She'll also get a written reply. The third one is from Linda Hope. The fourth one was Imogen Shepherd-Dubé.
Um, 76% of the respondents to the consultation last autumn voted for the Route B option for the North Wokingham Distributor Road. What steps are being taken to guarantee that Route B could be delivered?
Good evening. Thank you for asking that question. I'm responding on behalf, maybe ask the leader, but it's become apparent during the evening why. The Council Executive received a report in March this year setting out the results of the consultation on the options for the North Wokingham Distributor Road. At the meeting, it approved a recommendation to fund further work into the alignment that will garner the greatest confidence in the preferred route. The further work being undertaken includes looking into issues relating to the environment, the engineering, traffic and land ownership. This is vital work that will ensure the viability of the final outline route alignment. From this, we will be able to progress to the planning application and more detailed engineering solution. Our objective is to adhere to the wishes of the majority of the consultees as far as we can, and particularly to try to protect existing residents from the impact of the new road. The additional work should be completed later this year and will be reported back through local forums and to the executive.
Do you have a supplementary?
No supplementary, thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Clive Jones.
Thank you very much. My question is, I think, to the leader of the council. Now that Sainsbury's have pulled out of your regeneration scheme, will you undertake not to build anything on the green space at Elmsfield without first consulting the public across the whole of the borough?
Thank you for your question, Mr Jones. The Council has consulted extensively with members of the public on the principles of regenerating Wokingham Town Centre and throughout the process, and from core strategy to master plan and to our own proposal. These key principles of regeneration have remained consistent throughout and have guided the development of our scheme. To create a thriving town centre with a much greater variety of shops which allow people to buy the goods that they want right here in the town rather than having to go elsewhere. We will concentrate on independent and niche retail to offer something different. To strengthen the 18-hour economy, developing improved leisure facilities and a wider range of attractions to bring people to the town throughout the day and evening. To establish streets as places, creating far improved environments which offer a much better pedestrian experience and address the dominance of the car within the town centre, along with improved parking and access for all. To create spaces to breathe with high-quality public areas and open spaces, which offer the right facilities for people to socialise and enjoy the town centre throughout the year. To set the design standard by delivering designs which take their influence from the town rather than the generic, and makes decisions based upon the quality, flexibility and longevity of what is delivered rather than the price. Public engagement's been at the heart of establishing our proposals in response to these principles and remains so as we move forward. We've undertaken far more public consultation on this scheme than any private developer would have carried out, and consistently made changes into public comments at each stage. Indeed, the regeneration applications were withdrawn in December last year, so could address comments received around the design. These public comments have led directly to design changes which we're in the process of drawing up at the moment. During this process, we will continue to engage with local people on the proposals and will bring forward our revised designs to share with people as the redesign progresses. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. It was quite a long answer, and I don't think that you committed to consult widely right across the borough with your new planning application. Bearing that in mind, do you think that there might be another extraordinary council meeting in December this year?
Who knows?
Thank you. We move now on to petitions, and I believe there is a petition from Mr. Fox and Mr. Shadow, please.
Yes, first of all, my name is Fox. I'd like you to be a little bit patient with me because I'm recovering from neck and throat cancer, so I have great difficulty in talking. Here's the petition, and I don't know who I hand this to. I'd particularly like to bring your attention to photographs 3 and 4 that shows quite clearly what we're dealing with in the early area of the drive, Early Court Gardens, Early Court Drive. Photographs 13, 15 and 18, where there are vans completely blocking blocking the pavement and the grass verge, forcing pedestrians to go out into the road. Photograph 22, which also clearly shows a Wokingham District Council sign that reads, "It is an offence to drive or place a vehicle on the verge without lawful authority, maximum penalty £50. And my understanding is the council will not enforce this full stop, and there are 6 of these there are 6 of these signs going down Early Court Gardens, and I have complained on a number of occasions to be told the same every time. The council will not enforce these signs, so I question why, in fact, you wasted public money in putting them up when you're not prepared to enforce them. And lastly, photograph 20, you can see the green that my house and Mr. Shaddock's house face out onto. and children play on this green most evenings during the summer and during the day, during school holidays and Saturdays and Sundays. It's not a car park, which is what it's turning out to be. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Petition is being received. Can I now inform the questioners and any of the petitioners, please, that they are very welcome to watch the rest of the proceedings from the public gathering, please. Thank you. We now move on to the Mayor's announcements. I have the pleasure of attending quite a few engagements, and of one in particular to note, I think, is the one on the 15th of July, when myself and my wife welcomed and received the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, the Woodley Memorial Ground, Headley, and Woodley now has a memorial, which is very nice to note. Just another short announcement, and that's from Councillor Ross, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I am one of very few people, I think, left on this council who remember the lady, third chairman of this council. She was chairman from 1978 to 1980, and with great regret I announced to council that she died recently. Even more regrettable was the fact we did not find this out until after her funeral. But she was a very early pioneer of the then district council, and well remembered by, I'm sure, the people of Arborfields who she represented, and by many since who have known her. I think, if I may, Deputy Mayor, it would be appropriate for us to stand for a minute's silence in respect of Councillor Delphine Holland.
Thank you very much. Move now on to item 21. This will be a presentation on Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education. The item will be 15 minutes duration, including the opportunity for members to ask questions. As it is a presentation only, it does not need to be proposed or seconded.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us to speak to you this evening. I'm Michael Freeman, the chairman of the Working Centre, and on my right is Jan Lever, who's also come this evening, who is the RE consultant. In front of you, there should be a rather beautiful little leaflet. Please feel free not to look at me or Jan, but to actually peruse it whilst we're talking, so we can prove it from master class. Both of us are teachers And therefore, we're going to assume that you're a mixed ability group this evening, that some of you will know everything we're going to say and others will know nothing. So we're going to try and steer a sort of middle path. SACRE, as the chairman has just said, stands for Standing Advisory Council, either for or on religious education. SACREs was set up in the 1970s and 1980s in order to monitor religious education in every local authority. And basic responsibility is to monitor. It is not to promote religions. It is to supervise how well RE is taught in the local community. And the second major task that we have is to ensure that the syllabus, which, as you may know, although nationally prescribed, is actually locally established, and that every 5 years we review the local syllabus, which is actually taught in the borough. You'll be delighted to know that at the moment you have the very best local syllabus that's ever been presented to Berkshire, and we're very, very proud. We've decided to create a sort of series of 10 steps because we're in the process of rebuilding the SACRE. Because when I took over as chair in 2007, I was dismayed to learn that nobody knew what the SACRE was, and teachers of RE in the borough whom I've known for 20 odd years had never heard of it. So we are on a pathway of self-advertisement, but also to show you that what we're doing is worthwhile, and, sorry to be rather materialistic, but we are value for money. As you know, you contribute to our funds every year, but we are a statutory body, and therefore we have to be supported by law. Dan is just going to give you the context of the national situation.
Yeah, very briefly, the national context, as Michael's already pointed out, is that RE remains a statutory subject. It sits outside of the national curriculum because the content of what is taught in religious education is locally prescribed. So our locally agreed syllabus informs our schools as to what they need to teach, but it is a statutory obligation for them to do so. The national picture in terms of what to teach is where sometimes the confusion arises, because we have a number of different sorts of schools, as you well understand, and each of them has a different sort of requirement in terms of the content and the nature of the RE that it actually needs to deliver to its pupils. So most of it, I won't read the entire slide, I'm sure you can do that whilst I'm just giving you the main points, but most of our local schools here do follow the Pan-Berkshire locally agreed syllabus. Our academies and free schools can be autonomous, but at the moment are choosing also to follow the agreed syllabus. Our faith schools have flexibility according to their trustees, but most of our voluntary control schools also choose to follow the agreed syllabus. So this document is considerably important in that it needs to be right when the SACRE revises it every 5 years, and with consultation, it needs to be as good as it can be, because most of our schools actually take that as their obligatory curriculum for religious education.
Some people may think that the SACRE is a rather sort of peripheral body, but I think you'd agree, if you're alert to what is going on in this country, that the teaching of religious education is going to assume a greater prominence than it has had for many years. The demographics of this country are changing, and by the end of this decade it is foreseen that there may be 25 to 30% of the population of this country practicing non-native religions, that is to say non-Christian religions. So we have got to be aware of the fact that people need to know about these, and there needs to be mutual understanding. There's a great deal going on politically as well as pedagogically, and I just want to alert you to mention the RE Council, which has been set up recently and has produced a report in 2013 advising, because it has no statutory authority, it is actually a voluntary organisation, it has advised on what the RE curriculum should consist of. Coming out of this, Stephen Lloyd MP has set up an all-parliamentary parliamentary group, which is starting its work this year, and that is going to act as a kind of gathering together of information as well as different opinions to try and convince the government that it must in fact take RE more seriously. It is a statutory subject. It is on the national curriculum as such, but it is not prescribed. It is simply proscribed. That means that it has no funding, it has no descriptions of how it must be taught, what amount of time must be spent on it in the timetable, and it is totally at the decision of head teachers and governors whether RE is taught in the way that you would think or not. There are schools in Berkshire, not in Wokingham, but in Berkshire, which have cancelled RE as a subject on the curriculum, have closed down their RE departments to save money, made their teachers of RE redundant, and now deliver it through PSAG, assemblies, and, I'm not making this up, ethical days, where the subject on the curriculum is taken across the curriculum. So let's take chemistry, teach it for a whole day across the school, but with a spiritual context. The Ofsted reports, that's probably not a name you like to hear, but I do advise you, if you have time, to consult the 2010 and 2013 reports. They are very, very interesting. And they say a lot more, so that it's supportive than you would be led to believe. There's also the mysterious EAG, or Expert Advisory Group, which was ESAG until 2 months ago, it changed its name, which is going to report in 2014 to 15.
A few of the weaknesses that the most recent Ofsted report actually pointed out regarding RE nationally are on your screen now. But it's important for us to look at these at the moment because the SACRE is the main vehicle in Wokingham in order to try and address some of these weaknesses. There's much good practice in religious education happening in Wokingham schools, but we're very aware that some of these things are applicable here and that the SACRE is attempting, through its action plan, to help schools, help teachers to address some of these things. So the assessment of children's learning, we're helping them with that. Access to training, we're providing an ongoing programme of training and so on, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment.
The RE train. Now, one thing I want to draw to your attention is that a lot of what we do is online. It is on the Wokingham Council site, and it's under different parts of it. But all our meetings are minuted and our agendas are reported, and they are published to the public. Also, we have various areas where things that we've created are reported on, so that there is the opportunity for you and all members of the public in Wokingham to be aware of this if they want to find these things. The first thing I asked us to do was, in fact, to create an RE trail, which is a document which is actually very beautiful, but it's online now, so that you can download it. It's beautifully illustrated in colour, and it does a tour of the churches and places of worship in Wokingham. It has not been used ever by anybody yet, and the reason I realised is because when it was first issued, still nobody knew what on earth we were. So what was this trail, and who was it being, offered by? This document, which Jan has just flashed at you, the agreed syllabus, as I said, it's the best ever. And I like to think that Wokingham took a leading role in many ways in creating this, because we got all the other SACREs in Berkshire to come together to actually share in costs, look at the whole idea of production, the way it's organised. We reduced the statutory element of it from 125 pages to 45, which makes it more readable. And also, the whole thing is colour-coded, labelled, and produces the most beautiful outline of what is required in the syllabus from Key Stage 1, 2, 3, right up to 4, and even hints of 5. It is user-friendly, and it does have a CD-ROM inside, so that means you can put it onto your computer system in your school, and it can be used by any staff who wish to consult it. How Jan mentioned was providing inset. Now, this first was a teeny bit controversial because Wokingham does not provide CPD inset for schools per se. So what were we doing, creating that for RE teaching? Well, as part of our statutory responsibility to make sure that teachers can teach the new curriculum, it has to be embedded, and therefore we are obliged by statute to actually provide network meetings for teachers. meetings. We had the joint Reading and Woking Conference, which was held at the Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Tyler's, which they lent us for almost nothing and provided the most sumptuous banquet I've ever seen at one of these meetings. But the fact is that we got together teachers from Reading and Woking, and they wanted teacher meetings. So we also set up, during the next year or so, network meetings each term, secondary schools, primary schools. These are now self-sustaining. Jan leads them and coordinates them. They cost the council nothing because the schools host them and rotate them, and they supply the facilities needed for these meetings. Without these meetings, the teachers actually manage to find cooperation, exchanging ideas. They do presentations on the work in their various schools, and they debate the issues of the day. The journey so far, therefore, has resulted in creating these network meetings. We've had presentations for schools at Sacre meetings, and we now have this new Sacre leaflet, which is hasn't gone out to anybody yet, except yourselves. It is online as of yesterday, but in fact the hard copies are going out to every head and chair of government of every school in Woking Borough in September, because I think we'd agree at this time of the term they vanish in the tsunami of madness. Another thing that we've been looking at and organising and was requested by teachers was to go on faith tours. They wanted to visit places of worship in the Reading and Woking area. And Jan is now going to tell you a bit about those.
Yeah, we brought together Wokingham and Reading teachers, and initially they wanted to visit the places that they'd never been before. Many of them had not visited a mosque, or a Sikh Gurdwara, a Hindu temple, and so, or the Buddhist centre. So we took them to 4 different places of worship in Reading, all in one day. The aim of that really being to increase their knowledge of those religions, not just the places of worship, because they were greeted there by members of those faiths and had dialogue with those people to increase their own subject knowledge. The spin-off we hope from that is that will also encourage those teachers to take their groups of children to those places of worship for that personal experience of being in those contexts also. As we were only able to take 20 teachers on that occasion, what we also did was took a photographer with us to take lots of photographs, and as a result of that trip we produced PowerPoint presentations and a gallery of photographs which we then put onto CD-ROMs and sent to every school in Wokingham and Reading. So even if the teachers could not attend themselves, they were given teaching resources as a result of that particular event.
We've also introduced an RE conference for secondary schools, which was jointly run and funded by Wokingham and Reading again this year. That was brilliantly successful. You are very fortunate to have Wangels College in your borough, because it is an outstanding school in all kinds of ways. It also has RE as a compulsory subject on the national curriculum, all the way through from years 7 to 11. The head of department, I've been asked not to name him, but he is outstanding. His Oxford reports have been so ever since he took up his post. But the school has the most amazing response to our education, and the students are immensely enthusiastic. Their exam results are also very good. We have just had the Pan Berkshire Sacres Conference. This is every year when we get together all 6 Sacres across Berkshire. We are looking now at the creation of a Pan Berkshire Sacre Hub, which will mean that we will be both single and local, because we want to form different projects for which we can put in bids, because there are some very wealthy organisations who are prepared to support lavishly, if possible, extra projects. I do emphasise extra. I'm sorry, it does not mean you can stop paying us for the basic things we have to do, because what we're aiming to do is to put in bids for certain projects across the authority, right across Berkshire. We're going to probably pair, so there'll be 2 of us together at a time to actually launch much more exciting projects which we couldn't possibly do without the technical funding. We've also raised...
Can I just ask you to wind down, please, because your time's up. Thank you.
Okay. We have a faith calendar, and you have the new Sacre leaflet, and we are hoping that with all these sort of things, and your continuing excellent support, we will be able to continue helping teachers provide the outstanding education in RE, which is already present.
Thank you very much. Time's Yes, so what I can ask you is actually a couple of questions I can take. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Michael. And I apologise for not being a very good attender, but I assure you, if you still want me there, I will continue to do my best, having now stepped down as leader and moved to the lowly ranks of this very back door, back benches here by the back door. I'm not sure if people have actually read the document which you have in front of you. You'll notice that one of the representatives on the religious group says Shaheed on there, and myself and Beth sit on the Sacred as members of the council. What I was just listening to what you say, and I think you touched on it earlier on, Michael, that currently there is a lot of debate in the news. It's becoming quite political, the whole religious thing, and I think that SACRI do a very good job. And I'm sure that the council here will continue with the funding that they provide you, even though things are tight, bearing in mind the good work that you do. I can't really ask for the council to agree to that tonight, but I'm sure, bearing in mind what you've said, they will look upon that very favourably. So thank you very much for all the work that's done, and as long as you want me there, I will be a better attender in the future, not have less precious here.
Thank you, Councillor Lee.
Sorry, may I just respond very briefly? Thank you very much. I did, in fact, send you a letter. Have you received that?
Thank you.
In which I did, in fact, ask, I was hoping very much that you would stay. So now as you've answered me publicly, so that is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got one more. That's Shadi. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. As Michael, I'm actually a member of also SACRI as well, a representative. And I'd just like to commend the work, because I see the work from inside, how much work and effort and the time goes in by all volunteers, not paid, and how much actually effort goes in. Particularly the time which has been spent on designing the syllabus. I really find that without that guidelines, I know Michael said there's a guideline to the national level, but without that piece of work at a local level, I really feel that teachers will be lost and they really won't have any direction in terms of what exactly they need to teach. So thanks for that. I'd just like to commend the work which they're doing in Woking.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you. We now move on to Corporate Parenting Board Strategy and Annual Review. Councillor Charlotte Hayden-Taylor and Ian Peacock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very pleased to present this evening the Corporate Parents Annual Report for 2013 to 14 and also our strategy for 14 and 15. And I'd just like to introduce Chris Buckman to my left and also Billy Devereux. And Billy is our Children in Care Council Chair. The reports here tonight that you've got in your papers highlight our activities for last year, our achievements, our challenges and the strategy and plans for the next year. So, corporate parents, what's our role? And that's all of your role as well as corporate parents. All of us are corporate parents and should have a shared commitment to ensuring that all of our children and young people in the borough have the best possible start in life. We want our children to enjoy a full and happy childhood and achieve their full potential and have the opportunity to be the very best that they can be. Every child requires love, care and stability when they're growing up. As corporate parents, it's our responsibility to provide this environment for children and young people in our care as an integral part of our core business. This means that we should be listening to our children and young people, ensuring that all of our children in care and care leavers are settled in a secure and appropriate placement. That's either with foster carers or friends and family carers or any other suitable placements.
We also need to ensure that they get a quality education, and this will mean that they get the best outcomes for each individual child. We also need to ensure that they access the best possible healthcare, and especially healthcare that improves their emotional and mental health. Also, high quality and local placements to meet the changing needs of our children in care, because not every placement suits a child in care throughout the whole time with us. Same opportunities also to access leisure and social activities as other children. We also need to support their independence to their movement to independence as they become care leavers. This may mean that we continue to care for them up until they're 25. You may think that it's only up until 18, but actually now it's up until 25. Each of us here needs to be a pushy parent, and we need to be ambitious for every child in our care and all of our care leavers. So, setting the scene, just to give you some context about our children in care and care leavers in this borough. We have a total of 109 children who had episodes in the last year between 2013 and 14. And just to give you a snapshot of March 2014, we had 75 children actually in care with us. During the year, there were 23 new admissions into care and 34 children leaving care. So this was an overall reduction of a number from 86 in March 2013 to 75 in this March. And to give you a context from the overall borough, we have just over 154,000 population, and 23% of this population are children aged between 0 and 17, so it's a big proportion of our borough. And of our children in care, we have significantly more boys in care than girls in the working borough. Currently, that's 36% of looked after children girls and 64% of boys. Nationally, this is a similar picture, with 45% of children in care being girls and 55% being boys. So just to give you a little bit of information about our foster care families and also our foster friends and family carers as well. Currently, we have 60 carers offering short break, foster care placements, and also friend and family carers as well. This is for all children between 0 and 18, including children with disabilities as well. Our foster carers are extremely dedicated, committed, experienced, and they are a truly exceptional group of people. But simply, we don't have enough of them. In December, we started the Fostering Innovation Project, in which we went into partnership with a company called Empower. They're one of the national leaders and in enabling improvements in fostering services. It started to make an impact through system changes, and this is going to underpin our approach to recruitment for more carers to meet the very diverse and complex needs for the children that we have in our care. We aim to recruit another 10 carers and also approve another 10 carers before December of this year. We need a very mixed variety of care placements. We need parent and child care placements, short breaks, respite care placements. Foster carers who want to adopt, provide a forever home. Foster carers who will also offer supported lodgings. So that means that maybe someone who's been looked after by us then wants to move into a placement where they're 16, 17, 18 plus, through to helping them go either onto university or into future employment. We need dedicated and specialist carers also, and also we need to start recruiting more doctors as well. There's much more detail in the report, so I hope that you'll choose to read it, and if you've already read it, then perhaps go through it again. It is a statutory entitlement that all of our children and young people who are cared for by this local authority and all local authorities throughout the country are listened to and consulted. We have to take their views into account and listen to them and consult when we're shaping all of our services and developing them. In my role as a corporate parent and lead member, I found that listening to our children and young people has been invaluable. And I know that their contributions has led to improvements across many different departments within the council. So on to our Children and Care Council, and here this evening. Through our Children and Care Council, children and young people are regularly given the opportunity to share how they experience corporate parenting and get involved with the design, delivery and the evaluation of our services. They have contributed an enormous amount this year, but I just wanted to give you some highlights of what they've been up to. They've reached their target of 8 members on their board, which has enabled them to contribute to our board and service improvements and be able to get a really wide representative group. They've been liaising with other children and care councils across the country, and this has been able to assist with improvements, wider service improvements. They've been responding to government letters and questionnaires and setting up a Children and Care Facebook page as well for their members. And they have 2 active members of the Children and Care Council who sit on our corporate parenting board, and as I alluded to earlier, they are extremely helpful in telling us what they think about everything. One of the big achievements this year also is that they've produced the Woking Care Leavers Charter. Care Leavers here. And don't go home this evening without taking one, please. And when you take it home, don't just throw it in the recycling. Thank you. Okay, and I just thought I'd put up a few photographs also of what else they've been up to. So they've been promoting the Children in Care and Care Leavers Week, trying out a few new sports, and also supporting a fun day for our children with additional needs. Going forward for the next year, we've got 6 priorities which were shaped by the Corporate Parenting Board and also by Children in Care on the Children in Care Council. The first priority is to strengthen the corporate parenting role and corporate parenting function of the council as a whole. So, over to you. We want to enable the whole council to recognise and prioritise the needs of the children in care and care leavers as our collective responsibility in this regard. So, I hope that you'll be stepping up to the plate this year. Priority 2 is to strengthen the voice of children in care and young people leaving care to enable them to participate in the planning and reviewing of the service design. This means that we need to deliver on our pledge. We need to involve children and young people in recruitment and training of our staff. This means they need to be involved in all the consultation and the decision making about our services. And also endorsing and refreshing the Care Leavers Charter as well. Our third priority for this year is to consolidate the progress that we've made and also to continue to improve the timeliness and permanency for our looked after children across the range of our different permanency options. This means that, as I've spoken before, about increasing the range and the quality of our local foster care and supported lodging placements within a 20-mile radius. We also need to increase the stability of our social workforce to enable children in care and care leavers to have a social worker with whom they can build up trust and confidence in. And also we want to increase the number of children in care who remain in foster care until they're at least 18 and beyond. The fourth priority is to improve a care leaver's journey by ensuring that they have an enhanced offer to care leavers across all areas, and that includes education, employment, training, independent living, housing options and health. And the sort of things that we're talking about here are also securing apprenticeships for our children in care and care leavers within the council and within local businesses, and this is where you can help. Priority 5 is to improve the educational outcomes for children in care and young people leaving care, including their aspirations. Again, we need to increase the number of children in care, staying in care until they're 18 years old, and also develop our holistic education offer as well. And the last priority is to improve the health provision for our children in care and young people leaving care. So it's quite a big agenda for the next year, as you can see. But before stopping this evening, I wanted to say thank you because the last year has been a particularly busy one. I want to say thank you to all of our foster carers and friends and family carers for supporting our children in care. I've met many of our foster carers this year, and they really are a truly amazing group. Also, I wanted to thank all of the Children Care Council, and Billy in particular, and got her little present. Thank you. What I want to say about Billy is I don't think I've known her to miss a single meeting, or if she did miss it, it was one that I missed. As I said before, all of her contributions are fantastic, and we always listen to Billy, and all of the care leaders that come along. And also I wanted to thank our Children's Services team for all of their hard work this year. It's been a tremendously busy year. And we're always striving for the best for our children and young people in our borough. And I'm very lucky in my role that I get to hear from time to time about the great practice and the really good outcomes that we have for our children and young people. And it's really tough work, and we have some truly dedicated individuals who work for us here. I also want to thank our colleagues in other council departments as well for championing children, specifically those in regard to meeting housing needs for our children leaving care. And also for those for developing apprenticeships as well across the council and the community. And lastly, the Corporate Parenting Board as well, members here, for their commitment and hard work for the last year. We've had an ambitious year, and I think that it's paid dividends. Lastly, what will you do this year? I've got a few questions, and I wanted you to go away and think about your role as corporate parents, and maybe you can make a commitment for the next year. So, can you champion your role as a corporate parent in everything you do council-wide? Do you have contacts in local business who could offer work experience? We have 16 people aged between 16 and 17, as well as a number of other young people who have already left our care, and they all need lots of different opportunities. So, if you have any contacts, please let us know. When you go out canvassing, do you ask residents about whether they'd be interested in becoming foster carers? We need lots of new foster carers. Would you wear a polo shirt talking about us needing to recruit foster carers if you went out canvassing? Would you wear a t-shirt or a polo shirt asking about that and advertising it? Have you got a foster care recruitment sticker on your car? I have. If you haven't, why not? Would you put an article in your newsletters? I've done it before. It's really easy to do, but it doesn't take a lot of time. We can support you writing one. Did you make any decisions in the last year in your committees and board meetings where you could have thought more about the implications for our children in care and care leavers? And would it have had different outcomes, or would you have made different priorities if you had thought more about our children in care and care leavers? Will you commit to coming to our next training session, which will be in the autumn? Will you support children in care and care leavers on Awards Day and our different celebration events that we have for them? We need your help to help our children be the best that they can possibly be. That means being pushing parents, as I said before. We need to be ambitious for our children. What will you do differently this year? Have a think about it. Any questions?
Thank you. It's not a question, but I would like to make a brief statement as chairman of the Children's Services Scrutiny Committee, and that's to give big congratulations to the Corporate Parenting Board for the work that they've done over the last 2 or 3 years. The investigation into how looked after children was the first really detailed work that the Children's Scrutiny Committee did, and we found a whole number of areas that needed attention, both by the Children's Parenting Board, Corporate Parenting Board, and indeed in cross-cutting work right across the council. And we made a host of recommendations which the Corporate Parenting Board took on board and has worked with. And since then, the work's come on in absolute leaps and bounds. It's become so fast, the changes that have happened, and I really must make comment on that. And I'd like to congratulate everybody that's been involved, particularly the Corporate Parenting Board itself, the work that they've done, and indeed are still doing, because the work on hearing the children's voice is ongoing and it's vitally important. I think all councillors are now more aware that they are corporate parents to every one of our looked after children. And I thank you for the challenges that you've given us at the end of your speech, Charlotte. I hope you will take them on board. The Children in Care document is an excellent read. It reflects a great deal of the work that's been done for the children, and it reflects also the increased involvement that they have in the care that's provided for them, and at the time when they're actually leaving our care and going off into adult life, which was an area that was sadly neglected years ago. And of course they don't suddenly stop being children in care and become adults overnight. They do deserve and need a little bit of support, and that's what they're getting. So I would really like to reiterate all that Charlotte said and congratulate everybody that's been involved in this work. It's been a tremendous success. And lastly, I'd also like to repeat Charlotte's thanks to our foster carers, who are absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Charlotte.
Thank you, Bottom. I think the recommendation is that the report be noted. If you haven't agreed to have the report be noted, please. Thank you. Item 23, Standards Committee Report, July 2012 to 2014. I understand we have a proposer, Swap, and a seconder. Would you like to speak? Very briefly. I will. I don't have any slides, so yeah, just really briefly to say that the report actually is laid out on page 98, if you've got that far in the agenda. There's 2 points I would just like to understand before. One is I thought it was an eminently sensible decision by this council to continue the practice. That I've changed the legal practice in which the Standards Committee was not longer than constitutionally necessary. I thought we decided we would keep one, and I think we were absolutely right, so well done. And as the report lays out, it has heard of a few cases this year. It has resolved a number of complaints having spent considerable energy investigating the detailing of the problem. It's certainly bringing to an end a number of issues of concern. And I think that's this most valuable piece of work, bringing to an end issues of concern. I'd like to just add one last plea to members while I have your underlined attention, and that is that one of the issues which has come to the fore this year really is a failure by every member to declare every declaration of interest they may have. And over half the work has been complaints from the public that members have, in their view, failed to declare a particular business interest. So my plea, members, is do make sure you complete those declarations of interest forms that you do each year, avidly, carefully, and don't miss stuff off. That's my plea, and the report is for Councillor Burgott.
Thank you. Colin, do you have anything to add?
I'm rather imagine that Pauline would prefer me to go first. We are slightly surprised that there wasn't a report last year. I mean, this report covers 2 years, and it would be nice to know why that was. But while not denigrating the work of the committee in any way, we do have a problem with the report. Paragraph 5 on page 100 explains how many complaints there have been in the last 2 years, mercifully few, but it doesn't say how many of them were upheld, nor does it say where the decisions on upheld complaints can be found. We are in favour of preserving anonymity for those who are accused, because they may well be innocent. But once they have been found guilty, the information must be made public, because a standards system can only work effectively if it is open and transparent. And what is its value if it hides the misdeeds of councillors? I'm sure none of us want that. So without that information on whether councillors have been found guilty of misconduct and what has happened, we actually think the report is incomplete, so we can't actually vote to support it.
as I say, without denigrating the work of the committee in any way, and we do have a mercifully small number of complaints.
Wish to respond? Well, I'll only respond in that if and I hate the word guilty, if a member was found guilty of a serious offence, it would actually be published in the public. That would definitely happen. That's in the rules. Let's say no more than that. I entirely agree with you, Prue, if a member is accused of something, it is a very worrying time. One of the things we have tried to do is to speed the whole process up. It used to drag on for ages and ages. We have sped the process up to actually alleviate that. Finally, you were absolutely right. It was not a report done last year, but I only took it over last year. And we got it in October before we actually realised it hadn't been done. So we decided to do 2 years. So, but I hear what you're saying. If you need further information, perhaps you contact me. Yes.
Thank you. Very briefly, I'd like to support all that Rob said, but I'd also like to say that we need to be thankful to the coalition government for removing the absolute straitjacket that the Standards Committee used to have to function under, and which upset a lot of people because of the way that it did function. And I'd like to pay tribute to a number of officers and members who put the new system together, which protects the public and protects councillors, but in a very non-bureaucratic way. So thank you for the work that went into that. And as Rob Stanton said in the introduction to the report, that there is an introduction, it does enable the public to have confidence in their councillors and their professional approach to their role, which I sincerely believe that all of us councillors have. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much. Members, I think the recommendations that we know the report can I have your agreement.
Move on to now a statement by the leader, the executive members, deputy executive members and non-executive directors. Can I invite the leader to inform the council of his new executive, please? And following this, other members will have the opportunity to make statements, which will be no more than 5 minutes. Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I am now in a position to announce my executive team for the coming municipal year. But first, I would like to share an interesting experience I had this morning with respect to the works on the Loddon Viaduct, which have just started. I went through there from Barlow Way in Woodley at 6:45 a.m. this morning and had absolutely no problems whatsoever. The reason why I was so early was that I was on my way to Blackbush Airport to board the Jack FM helicopter to fly over the area and check on the traffic flows. We arrived over the site at approximately 8 a.m. and there was still no heavy build-up of traffic. Coming here tonight, I went through there at 6 o'clock. Again, no heavy build of traffic. So I would like to applaud those residents who found alternative routes, and I think we may well have a good solution on the traffic management. I'd like to say a few words on the Local Enterprise Partnership, or the LEP. My fellow leaders across Berkshire have unanimously voted for me to continue as a Berkshire Local Authorities representative on their executive, in order to continue the excellent work that David Lee has been doing over recent years. The Superfast Berkshire project to improve broadband coverage involving local authorities and the LEP will result in Nottingham Borough increasing coverage to 93.8%. A proposal to extend the project has been put forward to increase that coverage even further. Subject to executive approval, Wokingham will be committing further funds to push that coverage up to 96.6%. Now let me turn to my executive team. I've carried out an extensive review of the executive and the deputies and how they work. I've also considered the total special responsibility allowance, the SRA bill, and my desire, as I mentioned last time, to reduce this by at least 10%. You will have been distributed a paper which outlines my new team, which is in essence the same set of executive members, but with a major change for the deputies that my predecessor set up. At an executive level, I have recombined the affordable housing and general planning and strategic planning and transport into one role, as they were some time ago. The portfolio that was under the Deputy Leader in his executive role has now been fully redistributed to other members of the executive, including the Leader. This makes a net reduction of 2 executive members. The role of Deputy Leader will be taken on by Julian McGee-Sumner, but without the extra allowance given to this position. Now let me turn to the position of deputies. The deputy executive members will now be reporting directly to an executive member. They will have standalone parts of their executive member's portfolio to manage. It should be noted that the executive member is still responsible for the complete portfolio, and only they can make decisions. They will continue to get the SRA allocated for deputies as before. This concept has been explained to the Independent Remuneration Panel and was received very, very favourably. But clearly, we will have to wait for their final report. Now let me turn to the total SRA bill and my aim to reduce it by 10%. The net effect of my changes, I have detailed, reduces the total SRA bill for Conservative councillors by just under 12%. As the new leader, I am fully aware of the concern that a lot of our residents have about the councillor cost at this council. This reduction in costs, which are under my direct control, is my recognition of this. Last month, the Leader of the Opposition reaffirmed her regular position that she would not support increases or even suggested reductions. She now has an opportunity to demonstrate to residents that this was not all talk, and she will continue her stance and commit to reduce her allocation of the total SRA by 10%. I absolutely believe that she will have the courage of her convictions and will announce tonight that she will take the 10% reduction as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any of your executive members wish to speak? I'll start with Charlotte.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, building on my earlier presentation, it's just come to my attention that one of our care leavers, Melissa Duncan, is opening her first business on the 9th of August. It's in the town hall in Wokingham between 12 and 4 o'clock, and it's her business called Swagger Ragger, and it's street food. So I just want to let members know about that. So I'll start by wanting to thank our dedicated group of parents who've come together to form our parent reference group for the new secondary school in the south of the borough. They've held 2 meetings, covered lots of ground, contributed extensively in between meetings, and they have now produced a questionnaire which will be published at the start of September. It will be online on the consultations page of the council website, and we'll promote it by social media, and with the cooperation via the local primary schools, will go out via parent newsletters and websites. I also wanted to highlight that this group of parents represent a good variety of schools from across the south of the borough, as well as having a different age groups of children of their own. They will be key in helping the borough shape the new school. Moving on to just across the border, I was pleased to hear that just this week, families in East Reading will now have more certainty for new school provision, new secondary school provision planned for 2015. The delays and uncertainty in the journey of this school show the challenges to delivering new school provision and demonstrates why we're looking to achieve certainty at an earlier date for our families in our borough in the south for 2016, with our programme of engagement for parents well underway. Following this announcement, work has started to consider any specific impacts for Wokingham families. However, the addition of a new school, led by an outstanding Wokingham existing school, that's Maiden Early, would be great news for local families. Catchment areas are yet to be determined, and officers are working closely with the school to understand proposals. Next week, we have an executive meeting with an exciting agenda. We're asking for approval to go out and look for an academy sponsor for a new 3-form entry primary school on Montague Park in Wokingham to open in September 2015. I'll also be asking for members to support investing S106 funds, which will be used to build a new sensory room for children with special educational needs at Lambs Primary School. Next, I just thought that I would mention Aspire. It has come to the end of its first year, where it's made a positive impact for young people who are offered access to the curriculum there. One of Aspire's highlights this year was to be invited
invited to run a couple of workshops at the Festival of Education last March. Lastly, I wanted to tell parents and carers about our summer reading scheme. This year's theme is the Mystical Maze. This is one of the projects that has emerged from cross-council working with the Narrowing the Gap working group, a critical component of our council's priorities. This group are tasked with raising the attainment of children across the borough, in particular those who are on free school meals and those who are most vulnerable. If you have children, I cannot recommend highly enough getting to one of our libraries. Your children will be inspired to read this summer and rewarded with stinky stickers. I know, I've been there already. And you get to stick them on a maze chart. It is a model of engagement that is fun and motivational, and we've brought it to our children by looking at best practice elsewhere. And Councillor Jorgensen's got a bit more information as well.
Thank you. Councillor Pauline Georges, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. To follow on from Charlotte's comments, library usage continues to increase. In the last 5 years, we've now increased our visits by 70,000, which is quite significant and really underlines the amount of variety that the library service is providing to local residents. There's much more diversity. We've got e-books, we've got e-magazines, all sorts of things going on. And as Charlotte's alluded to, we're developing a very popular summer reading campaign, which not only narrows the gap, but also gives parents a good break and a bit of encouragement to get their children reading better. There have been 150 events across the borough, including the libraries, based on the sort of narrowing the gap agenda that Charlotte mentioned. Satisfaction in libraries is over 90%. It's the highest reported in England, and I think the library staff deserve a good pat on the back for that. Woking Library is about to host a new City Deal hub supporting young people and adults into employment, and we're in the middle of rolling out free public Wi-Fi, which will soon be available in all libraries. We're one of the few boroughs who have not closed, but indeed increased our library provision, and I think that is great news for the residents of Woking. Internal services are also working on elements of reducing costs and improving services for working residents. The shared services in legal solutions go from strength to strength and are further saving costs for local residents by reducing our cost of external counsel and reducing the cost per hour of legal support. We're also embarking on an internal audit shared service with Royal Borough of Woodge and Maidenhead, which will give potential for further services to be added and further savings for the residents of the area. Finally, I'd like to highlight benefit overpayment and fraud. The investigations team led by Andrew Moulton have done a great job this year. We've actually detected £388,000 of benefit fraud or overpayment. That is in the process of being recovered. It's very, very important that people pay their way in the borough and pay what they're due and do not overclaim benefits. And I would like to congratulate the investigations team in particular for the deliveries they've made this year.
Councillor Anthony Pollard, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Council tax collection, which we excel at, we've recently had reports from the Centre for Local Government for the financial year ended 31st March 2014. In this financial year, Woking has collected 99.3% of its billed domestic council tax and 99.1% of its non-domestic rates. This is the highest percentage of council tax collection and the second highest non-domestic rates collection amongst 336 local authorities in England. I don't have figures for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, I'm afraid, but I'm sure we do even better than that. Each 1% not collected amounts to £800,000 of lost income to the council, and given the pressures on our general fund budgets and the work done by the finance departments means that they're making their positive contribution to supporting the council's wider services by ensuring that lost council tax and non-domestic rates is minimised. This reduces pressure for savings which would otherwise be even greater elsewhere in the council. Local welfare scheme improvements, changes to the discretionary housing payment scheme, the local welfare provision policies. There has been a review undertaken of the discretionary housing payments and local welfare provision arising from the first 9 months of operation of this new scheme, following the transfer of responsibility of these schemes from the Department of Work and Pensions to local authorities on the 1st of April 2013. The review has identified an opportunity to assist those residents who are providing funds to the third sector, whose financial circumstances are very tight and who may in certain circumstances not be eligible for means-tested payments, but who would benefit from additional support which would prevent them requiring additional council support under other benefit categories. The Council is committing to helping its residents become more self-sufficient and self-reliant, and thereby free them from the dependency on council support. This scheme will support these objectives and provide targeted temporary support for some of our residents who will benefit most from this type of support. I am pleased to announce that my Deputy Executive Member, Councillor Stuart Munro, has been elected as Chairman of the City Deal Subcommittee on the Berkshire Local Enterprise Partnership. This is an important role within the LEP and will support Wokinham's commitment to making a positive contribution to the success of the LEP. I am also pleased to announce that both Councillor Stuart Munro has joined Councillor Rob Stanton on the Executive Committee of South East Employers. This is an important organisation which contributes to advice on salaries in the local government sector, which is an important area of cost to Wokingham Borough Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Philip Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. First of all, I'd like to welcome Councillor Mark Ashwell as my Deputy in Regeneration and Communities. I'm sure Mark is going to be a very positive supporter in this area. The last month has been a great period for the regeneration as our residents have really started to see what's been happening. The Beach Place refurbishment work is almost complete, with the building work set to finish at the end of August, followed by the final touches getting the new flats ready to sell. The refurbishment element was always going to be a challenging part of regeneration, as its design has been firmly set by both the substructure of the building and how our existing commercial tenants need to use that building. However, despite these constraints, I think it's clear for all to see how much of an improvement it is and on what there's been before and what a good job has been done by the team. There's an attention to the detail and the level of quality that will set the standard for the rest of the project moving forward. The remaining phases of the regeneration project are also moving forward as we continue to work up the designs in response to the consultation comments and a range of new opportunities, whilst aligning the town centre master plan and its objectives. Design work on Beach Place is well underway and looking at retaining some of the more varied roofline elements and integrating additional residential into the scheme to create a safer and more vibrant space and improve viability. We continue to be conscious that we need to provide what's right for the town and remain confident in our overlying principles of regenerating Wokingham. We plan to bring forward the planning application for this separately from Elms, which will follow on afterwards. Splitting the applications gives us the opportunity to look at the best way in which we can plan the Elms site, ensuring coordination with the creation of an improved leisure quarter at the Carnival Pool site. Local growth is very apparent around Wokingham, and it's critical that we deliver an improved town centre to support this. We plan to bring forward the Beach Place planning application before the end of this year, and we'll keep local people updated once we have a detailed programme in place, with public meetings to share the designs prior to submission. Our plans for Elms Field will follow as soon as our thinking has developed sufficiently. At the moment, we're looking in detail at the designs for Elms Field to take into account a range of factors including market demand, conversations with potential tenants, and making the most of the increased flexibility that we now have following Sainsbury's withdrawal from the scheme. It's also given us the opportunity to make sure we are working to the latest market data, including rerunning the retail capacity studies to ensure our plans are still in line with the type and level of development required to meet the changing face of the modern retail and leisure. I'm pleased to report that the latest findings continue to support our proposals and indeed strengthen the case to deliver a sustainable future for Wokingham Town Centre. The new approach to splitting the applications for the town gives us the ability to strengthen the town's retail and leisure offer, building it from the centre of the town and ensuring we can continue to respond to the latest requirements and demands. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I was interested in the figure that my colleague here said about increased attendance at our libraries. I must be interested when we study how much that would cause by the need for youngsters who are enjoying our free swimming offer, who have to have a library card as their qualification. This, of course, is being opened again this summer to these children. I'd also like to welcome Philip Holdsworth, who will be helping me through my little portfolio over the next year. Welcome aboard. I'm pleased to update Council on progress towards the transfer of the lease for Bournemouth Leisure Centre from Woodley Town Council to our leisure provider, Seasol. Work to complete the heads of terms and the dilapidations from Woodley Town Council are virtually complete, and I expect the transfer to be effective in the autumn. Staff transfer duty arrangements being underway. The transfer will bring a much improved offer to local residents with a fitted out gym and other improvements, all an exciting prospect for the residents of Woodley. It's with relief that after the winter flooding and its aftermath, which gave so much extra work for our drainage team, that they've now produced the draft local flood risk management strategy, mouthful, which will go to executive next week for agreement to go for consultation. And I hope everybody will look at it and consult and reply to the consultation. This is a statutory requirement, this strategy, and will provide clarity of responsibility of the various agencies and organisations, as well as individual landowners. It will also outline areas where we need to work to further reduce the risk of flooding and to look for grants and other funding with evidence-based schemes. In parallel, work is well underway to try to find ways to reduce the risk of closure of some major A roads across the Loddon and by the Thames during serious flood events, such as occurred last winter. Lastly, I'm working to ensure we get the best value out of our grounds contract so we minimise the impact of times of excessive growth of grass around the borough. Where have we heard that recently? That we work closely with our towns and parishes and ensure priority for safety elements of our contract, all within the budget, which we must all appreciate cannot be increased without impact on even greater priority work of the Council, such as our statutory responsibilities for vulnerable children and older people. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Woking Borough Council have recently asked for an expression of interest in the South Street scheme that I announced earlier this year. Tenants of the... Basically, we've had inquiries from tenants of the council on the housing register. A member of the public were asked to register interest on the online portal. We have a total of 228 responses. Early analysis of the survey completed online by the respondents show the following. Locations of respondents, 78% of them came from within the borough, with a further 22% outside the borough. The age of the correspondents were 35% came from between the age of 31 and 40, and 31% between 41 and 50. Current housing situation, the people who responded, 39% of the response came from those living in a private rented accommodation, followed by 23% living in council housing. And the employment status of over 85% of them were working. 46% of the people who responded have construction skills, including Federation of Master Builders, electricians, and building and surveying. We will now do an in-depth analysis of the registrations of interest, appoint a self-build consultant and inform those who have registered of the next step in the process, and this will be done before the end of August. The other thing I'd like to report is the fact that Woking Borough Council has reopened its hostel on Oxford Road, which will supply temporary accommodation units for the homeless. They are designed to provide short-term solution to temporarily accommodate those in housing need. The facility was closed in January for major refurbishment program. Previously it had 10 rooms with shared kitchens and bathrooms. The temporary accommodation has been transformed into a quality 9-room facility suitable for both families and single persons. 7 of the rooms are self-contained with own bathrooms and kitchens, and the other rooms offer flexibility to be used by self-contained larger family accommodation or single units. One room is also fully adapted to meet the requirements of those who use a wheelchair. The opening will see a reduction of the use of bread and breakfast accommodation by the borough, and its associated high costs. It will also lead to the reduction in placement outside the borough, reducing disruption to families at a difficult and stressful time of their lives, and the anticipated savings will contribute to the wider savings the council has to make over the coming years. However, it must be remembered that things can change for the economy and interest rates could lead to more families requiring assistance. The refurbishment shows the council's commitment to deliver improved services to some of the most vulnerable and those in housing need in the borough. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Finally, Julian McGee-Sumner.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I also would like to confirm that my deputy is actually Councillor Bob Wyatt, who members will know has done a superb job on the older people's housing policy. I had hoped to announce two good news items this evening, but as Councillor Ross is yet again before me and he's stolen part of my thunder, I can't announce that for the free swimming, but a note to self, get in before Angus next time. The other good news story I want to announce is on Optilis, our private trading company. I'm pleased to advise that Optilis has today secured a contract from Reading College. This will be a new partnership known as ACE at Optilis, and the service will be part of the college's LDD course starting in September. I'd like to thank everyone at Optilis for a job well done and hope this will be the first of many external contracts they will win. For anyone who wants any further information, a press release is due out from Optilis in the next few days. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to member question time. 20 minutes are allowed.
Mr Deputy Mayor, point of order. I didn't put up my hand to speak.
Sorry, I do apologise.
Is time finished? Have we run out of time?
20 minutes.
Yeah, please.
Well, could I ask therefore that I was trying to make a presentation that was blocked?
Fair enough.